Hey Barklord, welcome back. Well, I've had some turning over of thoughts here about the science thing. So my thoughts aren't totally collected at this point, not supposed to be. Let me tell you what I've been thinking. Okay, I kept thinking about Archimedes, right? Look, I hardly ever notice that stuff. And if I do, usually it's to make it bigger, but whatever. Look, that is, even I think that looks funny. I still don't think that's a bad thing, though. Okay. So let's see, I think I've told you a lot in comments, I'll just try to go through. So basically I realized that I was thinking about Archimedes. And then I was thinking all of these guys that worked for kings that tried to, even way back that made, whatever, catapults and things. Okay. And then I was thinking of that as a corruption, right? Because those are the kings. It's kind of like there's corruption of art, Maybe the king hired a symphony writer and he just wanted to hear great symphonies and he did a great thing for history and we still listen to dude's symphonies. On the other hand, maybe he hired one and he said, it has to always glorify someone in my family or it has to be about my favorite pet, And then he caused that money to go wasted, in terms of social redeemability of that art or whatever. And of course, we have a big period where a lot of intellectual things that all citizens can, pretty much take part in now, couldn't in the past, and they were just funded in things that happen inside the court of the king. And I thought, well, and then I realized, you know what? I'm just making an excuse. I can't say that I get to define the word science when it's going to be based on aesthetic value of mine. And so I don't know exactly what words. So I'm going to try some words, but I mean, basically, the discrimination is trying to make, and I do make this, mind you, in my own value system. I just realized I can't claim that science goes with my definition of good science. Oh, another thing was that I started thinking about this from the point of view of the history of science, and I was going, there was a lot of this Archimedes kind of science of dominating people and military science in the classical system. Because while I don't think Newton, I think Newton's kind of immune to a lot of the accusations of corruption we've been talking about, really the Newtonian, but though not necessarily. I'll get into that in a second, but classical physics became very much that way. We know everything except for the details of where things are. And we know exactly how they're working. So, this definitely became a weird dominating nature thing. And that's what bugs me, the domination. I don't think what I would have liked to call real science it can be about dominating. If you want to dominate man or want to dominate nature, to me that's not healthy spiritually. So sadly, I'm left with the fact that, okay, I look at society, I can't claim science has really been done from this motivation, mostly, that I approve of. However, I can claim that the most amazing science, the science I appreciate, exclusively comes from that. Right? Einstein was kind of dude that in terms of motivation. Right, we still have economics to discuss. We still have the interesting example of, I would love to go ahead and use Feynman and Einstein a lot. They're two of my favorite physicists. The things they came up with are just awesome. The science, the theories, the knowledge, their philosophy on epistemology. And yet they were involved with the bomb and stuff, and we can talk about how they're still. And I think I can go back to the word of, well, that's a corruption of someone that's really trying to say, I wonder what it'd be like to be a ripple on the top of the water. Someone that really loves nature and just pondering and looking and gazing at all of the interactions and beauty and things of nature and wanting to make a kind of scientific knowledge sense about how things work. So I do think they have come up with the best science, but then again, scientists all rely on each other, right? So that goes back to they're using things that could be from anywhere. So I don't know how this exactly sorts out. I still do have... this also frees me up to be more of a glorifier of this of a natural philosophy that comes from a love of nature, as opposed to the will to dominate. Now, people could say, "Oh, well, all animals want to dominate." No, some animals are not this alpha dominator. Some, for example, in herd animals, a lot of animals quite naturally go to the non-dominating role. It's like the genes give birth to just a few that want to run everything. Right? So I'm not going to buy like human nature is all about dominance. You're never going to separate dominance from science, because no, I'm not buying that. Okay. I think there is a statement of scientists. I think there's an idealization a lot of physical scientists have about what they do, that it's an inquiry into nature. And it's good that they have that view about their motivation. I was also reading up on some quantum biology and quantum computing. That's a funny one, because I do think quantum computing might be science. I mean, it seems like it's science, right? And it's heavily motivated by practicality, because we know what those machines could do, and there's, like, they could be good code breakers, possibly. And so the military and stuff is involved in that. And I think because it's a lot of computer people, and we have these computers that turned out to be so practical, even though it's very theoretical, and none of these people imagine getting a quantum computer that we could use for decades and decades at best. They still see that. So I'm seeing how this, it can be difficult to know. If you're like, I want to learn something, and by the way, I'll get a bunch of money when I learn it. You can really want to learn it and also really want the money. I mean, the brain has a lot of parts to it. So I would like to talk and sort that out. But of course, I'm still from the attitude of, well, how could we zero in on which science is good to do? Like, let's say we're all voluntarily, we don't have to pay taxes to anything we don't like. So it's like, oh, I don't want any of my taxes going to the Iraq war. And then maybe someone's like, well, I didn't want the war, but I don't want all those American kids over there to die. They got to be able to do it right and have food. So I will pay, or whatever. The personal turmoil is my point. Let's say we're in that situation. You don't have to pay for science. What kind of science could you and I agree on? That would be an interesting question. And I think if there was a way to find out if the motivation was a love, for lack of a better word, a love of nature, just a true, I mean, that's how I feel about it. That's how I've gotten into science. I've always been disgusted by the cruelty and dominating. I've always thought it was ridiculous trying to dominate nature. None of this does this. See, I like the Feynman attitude, where it's like, there is no domination of nature. There's not like, I'm going to prove it's one rule, or this or that, or I have control. It's like, however it is. I just want to find out. I just want to know. I just want to look into it. I don't even have to find out. I just want to look into it. So, anyway, cheers.